the night Karen called 911 on me. I wasn't doing anything wrong. I wasn't trespassing. I wasn't stealing. I was just picking up my clothes from the dryer in the laundry room I've had access to for 10 years. But that night, as the sirens approached and red lights flashed through the window, something inside me broke. Because I realized this wasn't about laundry. It was about control. About a woman who thought she could run the entire neighborhood like her own kingdom. It all started 2 weeks earlier, when the HOA elected a new board president, Karen Whitmore, a retired teacher with too much time and too little compassion. She moved in 2 years ago, and from day one, she treated our quiet townhouse community like her personal classroom. Rules taped on every door. Notes under windshield wipers. Threat letters printed in Comic Sans, violation of HOA Section 4B. Clothes left in dryer over 30 minutes. That's how it started over a load of laundry, you see. Our community had one shared laundry room. 3 washers. 3 dryers. A small space with a single window and a flickering light that hummed like a tired bee. I'd used it for years. Always on time, always respectful. But that night I got delayed. My son had called from college. He needed help paying for books, and we'd talked longer than I planned. So I came down 45 minutes late. When I opened the door, Karen was already there. Her arms crossed, foot tapping, and my clean laundry dumped on the floor. "Excuse me?" I said, trying to keep calm. "You can't just throw my clothes like that." Karen didn't even blink. "Community rules. Section 4B, she snapped. Laundry left unattended is considered abandoned property. Abandoned? My work shirts. My jeans. My son's sweatshirt. I'm just late, Karen. You could have set them aside. There's a bench. I'm not your maid." She cut me off. "You people think the world revolves around your schedule. You people." That phrase stung. I crouched down to pick up the clothes, shaking inside. All I wanted was to finish folding and leave. But she didn't move. She stood over me, arms still crossed, watching me like a criminal, and when I reached for my son's sweatshirt, she actually stepped on it. That's when I looked up and saw her pulling out her phone. She started taking photos. My face, the floor, my hands holding my own clothes. "What are you doing?" I asked, documenting evidence. She said coldly, "You've been warned before." "I've never," she raised a finger. "Don't argue with me. You're trespassing after hours. After hours." It's 9:30. The laundry room closes at 9. I looked at the sign on the wall, still said 10 p.m. She'd taped a new one, 9 p.m., with a cheap label maker. That night, I just walked out. Didn't want to fight. Didn't want to give her a reason, but I couldn't sleep. Something in me knew this wasn't over. Because Karen wasn't just enforcing rules, she was rewriting them. And 3 days later, I'd learned just how far she was willing to go. It was Sunday evening. My wife was baking cookies, our dog asleep on the rug. I told her I'd go grab the last load before bed. When I got there, the laundry room was locked. Brand new keypad. A laminated sign read, "Laundry access for residents with current dues only." HOA board, I'd paid every bill on time. But when I called the HOA office, the voicemail said I was delinquent. Karen had filed a non-compliance notice, claiming I'd damaged property and violated laundry rules. And with that, she'd suspended my access. I tried calling. No answer. So I did the only thing I could. I went through the maintenance door. The same one I'd been given access 2 years ago. When I helped repair that dryer myself, and that's when I saw it. My laundry bag sitting in the corner. Still clean, still folded. Just waiting. I picked it up, took a deep breath, and as I turned around, Karen was standing there, phone in hand. "Camera rolling. You're trespassing," she hissed. "I'm picking up my clothes. You broke in. I have permission. You're going to jail." Then she pressed 911. "It's 911. What's your emergency?" "Yes," Karen said, her voice calm but venomous. "There's a man breaking into the laundry room. He's stealing." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Ma'am, are you safe?" "I'm terrified," Karen whispered dramatically. He's threatening me. Stepped back, speechless. I didn't say a word. And yet 5 minutes later, I was surrounded by flashing red and blue lights. The officer asked me to step outside. Karen stood behind him, pretending to shake, clutching her chest. He threatened me, she said. He broke the door. Officer, I said quietly, please, this is my laundry. He looked at the bag, looked at me, looked at her. Do you have proof? You live here? And right there, under the cold fluorescent light, I realized how powerless I looked. No papers, no witnesses. Just me, a bag of clothes, and a woman who'd decided I didn't belong. I tried explaining. About the dues. About the sign. About the conversation. But Karen interrupted every word. He's lying. He's dangerous. I've warned the HOA. For the first time in my life, I felt what it was like to be truly invisible that night. I was escorted back to my home like a criminal. The officer didn't arrest me, thank God, but he said he'd file a report. Karen smiled as they walked away. She whispered, "You'll regret this." And I did, because the next morning a letter arrived. From the HOA, formal notice of fine. $500 for trespassing, property damage, and disorderly conduct. That was the moment I stopped being afraid, because I knew this wasn't just about laundry anymore. It was about dignity. So, I did what I should have done weeks ago. I opened my old file cabinet, pulled out the papers, and found the one document Karen didn't know existed, the original HOA bylaw, the one I helped write back when I was on the founding board, and at the bottom, signed by our first president, were these words: residents have 24/7 access to shared amenities. Unless safety hazards arise, verified by majority vote. No vote, no hazard. No suspension. Karen had broken the rules, not me, and I wasn't going down quietly. The morning after that humiliating night, I stared at that $500 fine letter on my kitchen table. It felt heavier than paper. It felt like proof that bullies could win if you stayed quiet. My wife Laura set a cup of coffee beside me. She'd been watching me, silent, calm, but her eyes told the story. "Are you going to let her do this to you?" she asked softly. I looked at her, at the woman who'd stood beside me for 25 years, who'd helped me build everything we owned. "No," I said. "Not anymore." So, I grabbed my folder full of HOA bylaws, old meeting notes, and receipts from years ago when I'd served as treasurer. I'd helped write the community's very first rules. Karen might have taped new ones to the wall, but I had the originals with signatures. As I flipped through those papers, something clicked. The date of her amendments didn't match any official meeting. No board signatures. No approval votes. Just Karen's initials scribbled in the margins. That meant everything she'd been enforcing the new curfews. The fines, the suspensions, was illegal. She hadn't been protecting the community. She'd been running a one-woman dictatorship, and it was time someone stood up. I called an emergency HOA meeting. Every resident got an email, topic, unauthorized rule changes, and abuse of authority. Attendance required. Within hours, word spread. By the time the meeting started, the clubhouse was packed, neighbors whispering, curious, frustrated, tired of being told what to do by someone they never voted for. Karen walked in late, clipboard in hand, smug as ever. When she saw me standing at the front with my binder open, her smile froze. "What's this?" she snapped. "An accountability meeting," I said evenly. "You don't have the authority to call one." "Actually," I replied. Flipping to the first page, according to Article 7, any founding board member or majority of residents may call a review session. A ripple of murmurs spread across the room. Karen's eyes narrowed. She wasn't used to being challenged. "Let's start," I said. "Karen, you've been issuing fines and changing access times without a recorded vote. I have the original bylaws right here." She crossed her arms. "I have the updated ones." "Good," I said, holding out my hand. "Show us." She hesitated just a moment, but it was enough. Everyone saw it. Finally, she reached into her folder and pulled out a stapled packet. The first page read revised HOA policy, but in the corner, faint but visible, was her signature. Alone, no co-signers. No timestamps? Who approved these? I asked. I did, she said firmly. As acting president. Who appointed you acting president? The room went quiet. Karen looked around, searching for backup. But no one spoke. Because the truth was, she'd taken over after the last president retired, never holding a vote. She'd simply announced herself in the community newsletter, and until now, no one had questioned her. You can't just change rules, I said. This community runs on trust, not tyranny. Karen's lips tightened. You think you're a hero? You're just bitter because you broke the rules. I didn't break any rules, I said, lifting the old binder. You did. And I've got proof. Then I read aloud from the original bylaws, the clause guaranteeing 24/7 access to shared amenities. Every head turned. Every whisper grew louder. She'll find my daughter for leaving a towel in the pool area. She'll ban me from decorating for Halloween. She threatened to tow my car. Voices rose. People stood. For the first time, I saw her cornered. Karen slammed her clipboard shut. This meeting's over, she shouted, and stormed out, but it wasn't over. Not even close. That night, a notice appeared on every door. Unapproved meeting, null and void. Organizer, under investigation. She was trying to flip it back on me. I almost laughed, except I wasn't laughing, because the next morning, I woke to find my driveway blocked. A bright orange cone. A warning sign. Property inspection pending. She'd filed a complaint against my home, claiming I'd made unauthorized modifications. The modification? A flower bed my wife planted 3 years ago. It was harassment. Pure and simple. And that's when I decided it was time to bring in backup. I reached out to David Chen, an old friend, real estate attorney, and former HOA consultant. When I told him everything, he shook his head. She's not just overstepping, he said. She's committing fraud. Fraud. Changing bylaws without approval. Issuing fines without board consent. That's a breach of fiduciary duty. You've got a case. So, we started gathering evidence, emails, notices, photos of altered signs. Even footage from a neighbor's doorbell camera showing Karen sneaking into the laundry room late at night. Swapping the access sign. From 10 p.m. to 9 p.m. Caught. Red dash handed. We filed a formal complaint with the HOA's Regional Oversight Board. And when Karen got served the notice, she lost it. She showed up at my doorstep. Pounding the door like a storm. You think you can destroy me? She yelled. I opened the door calmly. I'm not destroying anyone, Karen. I'm just telling the truth. She jabbed her finger toward me. You're going to regret this. I've been here longer. People trust me. Behind her, I saw neighbors watching. Phones recording. You don't scare me anymore, I said quietly. You can't bully people into silence. She froze. For a second, I saw something flicker in her eyes. Fear, guilt. Then she turned and stormed off. The following week, the Oversight Board scheduled a special audit. They reviewed every policy she'd issued, every fine, every suspension, every rule she'd made up, and what they found was worse than I expected. She'd been collecting extra fees, charging residents for late dues that didn't exist. She'd pocketed over $3,000 in violations. No receipts. No approval. It wasn't just abuse of power, it was embezzlement. When the auditors confronted her, she denied it. Said I forged the evidence. He said everyone was lying, but when they pulled bank records, it was all there. Transfers. Withdrawals. Payments to her personal account labeled HOA. Reimbursements. The woman who called 911 on me for picking up laundry was stealing from the entire neighborhood. When the board presented their findings, Karen didn't even show up. She resigned by email. Her last line read, "This community doesn't deserve my leadership." I almost laughed. Because for once, she was right. The HOA reversed every fine she'd issued, refunded residents, restored our laundry room access. But the damage she'd done ran deeper than signs and fees. She'd turned neighbors against each other, made friends suspicious, turned a community into a battleground. So we held a real meeting, one where everyone got a voice. We voted in a new board, fair, transparent, and accountable. And for the first time in months, the air felt lighter. That night, I walked into the laundry room again. The hum of the machines felt almost comforting now. I set my clothes in the dryer, leaned against the wall, and just breathed. It wasn't about laundry. It never was. It was about standing up for fairness, for truth, for the right to live in peace. I folded my shirt slowly, smiling at the thought of how far we'd come. But as I turned to leave, something caught my eye. On the bulletin board, a torn piece of paper. No name, no handwriting. Just for words, "This isn't over yet." I stared at it, and for a moment the air felt heavy again. Because maybe, just maybe, Karen wasn't done. I should have felt relieved. The fines were gone. The rules restored. Karen exposed and disgraced. But as I stood in the laundry room, staring at that scrap of paper, "This isn't over yet," I felt something twist in my gut. People like Karen don't just disappear. They linger. In whispers, in rumors, in the shadows of what they broke, and sure enough, she wasn't done. 2 weeks later, I got a letter this time, not from the HOA, but from the county inspector's office. Subject: complaint of unauthorized construction on residential property. I almost laughed. This woman was still trying to get me, the construction in question. Our backyard shed. The same shed I'd built 10 years ago with county approval, signed off, permitted, inspected. I even had the certificate framed in my garage, but the inspector couldn't ignore a complaint. So he came by, clipboard in hand, polite but firm. "Sir, we just need to verify your permit." I walked him right to the garage, took down the frame, and handed it to him. He studied it, nodded, and smiled. "Perfectly valid. You're all good." As he walked back to his truck, he sighed. "You'd be surprised," he said, "how often we get calls like this." Same name, 2K. Whitmore. She's filed over 50 complaints in the last year. 50, not just against me. Against everyone. She'd been using the system like a weapon. That's when I realized if she was still doing this, it wasn't about me anymore. It was about control, and people like that only stop when you make them answer for what they've done. So, I made a call to the same oversight board that caught her embezzlement. To the local police liaison who'd responded that night, she called 911, and to the neighbors, the ones she'd bullied, fined and frightened. We decided to do what Karen never could: tell the truth. Together, the following weekend. We held a community restoration meeting. Every neighbor came. We sat in a circle, coffee and cookies on the table. No clipboards, no rules, just voices. One by one, people spoke. About the fines, the threats, the sleepless nights. And then Mrs. Alvarez, a sweet widow who lived across the street, stood up with tears in her eyes. She told me my garden was a violation, she whispered. Said I'd have to rip out my roses. They were my husband's favorite. He planted them before he passed. Her voice broke. And in that moment, every single person in the room understood what Karen had really done. It wasn't just money. It was kindness. She'd ripped it out of the soil and replaced it with fear. After the meeting, I wrote everything down. A full report. Dates, photos, testimonies. We filed it under community harassment and retaliation. It wasn't about revenge, it was about closure. 3 weeks later, I got a call from the county mediation office. Karen had been summoned. The hearing was quiet, almost sterile. Fluorescent lights, polished floors. But the air thick with tension. Karen sat across from me, eyes sharp but tired. She didn't have her clipboard this time. Just a plain folder and that same old scowl. The mediator began, voice calm. "Mrs. Whitmore, multiple residents have filed formal complaints regarding harassment. False reports and misuse of authority. Karen scoffed. Baseless lies. But then they played the doorbell footage. Her sneaking around at night, replacing signs, taking photos through windows. She froze. For the first time, I saw her speechless. Then came the financial audit report, the fines, the bank transfers, the fake amendments, and finally testimonies from residents, each one more heartbreaking than the last. When it was my turn, I stood slowly. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't gloat. I don't want her punished, I said. I just want peace. We all do. This is our home, not a battlefield. Else. Then, a sigh. From her, she dropped her pen, rubbing her temples. I was just trying to make things better, she muttered. By hurting people? The mediator asked softly. Karen didn't answer. The final ruling was clear. Karen was permanently barred from any HOA involvement, ordered to reimburse all improper fines, issued a restraining notice from harassing or filing false claims against residents. Justice.com. It's quiet, but absolute. As we walked out, I turned back. She sat alone, staring at the floor. And for the first time, I didn't feel anger. Just pity, because beneath all that noise, maybe she was just lonely. Maybe control was the only way she knew to feel seen, but that didn't excuse what she did. Over the next few months, our neighborhood started to heal. The roses in Mrs. Alvarez's yard bloomed brighter than ever. The kids played outside again. The bulletin board, once cluttered with rules, now held photos of birthdays, bake sales, and thank you notes. And one Sunday morning, as I loaded my clothes into the dryer, I caught my reflection in the metal door. Same laundry room, same hum of machines, but a completely different feeling. I wasn't afraid anymore, because standing up for yourself, it's not about shouting the loudest. It's about knowing when silence becomes surrender. A few weeks later, a letter arrived. Not from the HOA, not from Karen, from the County Appreciation Program. Apparently, our case had inspired a review of local HOA oversight. They were launching a new resident rights initiative to protect homeowners from board abuse. I smiled. Because sometimes when you fight back the right way, the ripple spreads farther than you'll ever know. That evening, Laura joined me on the porch. The sky painted in orange and gold, our dog curled by her feet. You really did it, she said softly. I laughed. We did it. All of us. She handed me a folded shirt, fresh from the dryer. Feels different, doesn't it? I nodded. Yeah, it did. Because every thread in that fabric carried a story. A reminder that peace isn't handed to you, you have to earn it. You have to fight for it. Fold it and hold it close. Now, when I walk past the laundry room, I still remember that night, the flashing lights, the humiliation, the anger, but I also remember what came after. Truth, unity, justice, and maybe forgiveness, because life's too short to let bitterness live rent-free. So, if you're listening to this, maybe you've got your own Karen, someone who tries to twist the rules, who feeds off control, who thinks fear is leadership. Remember this: no one can take your dignity unless you hand it to them. And sometimes, the smallest stand, even over a bag of laundry, can change everything. Have you ever faced someone like Karen? Someone who pushed too far until you finally said, enough. Tell me in the comments. I read every single one. And if you believe in standing up for what's right, hit that subscribe button. Share your story. Join me next time for another tale of real justice, real hearts, and real redemption. Because in this neighborhood, we don't let bullies win.